My sister-in-law mocked me, took credit for my party, then ordered $22,000 worth of food. A food in my name. She thought I'd pay. What happened next crumbled her reign and proved she wasn't the main character. My name is Ryan King, and tonight, I was paying for a party where one person desperately wanted me to know I didn't belong. Melissa, she never liked me, not from day one. I don't even think she liked Jenna, her own sister, but that never stopped her from acting like she was the queen of the family. She talked over people, made decisions nobody asked her to make, and somehow convinced herself she was the main character in every situation. Maybe that's why she hated me so much, because Eleanor actually liked me. Eleanor, my mother-in-law, was one of the only people in Jenna's family who had ever made me feel welcome. From the moment Jenna introduced me, Eleanor treated me like I was one of her own. She never cared that I wasn't born into this family. I was her daughter's husband, and to her, that meant I mattered. And Melissa hated that. Melissa had a problem with men. Not in the I don't need a man way. No, that would have been fine. She was bitter, angry, the kind of person who thought every guy was trash because her own marriage had crashed and burned. Her husband left her 3 years ago, and ever since then she had been on some kind of personal mission to make sure no man ever felt comfortable around her again, especially me. So when I saw her sashaying toward me in her designer dress, smirk locked and loaded, I already knew this wasn't going to be good. "Ryan, we need to talk," she said. I exhaled through my nose, swirling the bourbon in my glass. "Melissa, I don't think we do." "Oh, but we do," she replied, placing a perfectly manicured hand on my arm like she was about to tell me something deeply personal. "It's about the seating arrangements. Tiny change." I looked at her. "What change?" She gave me that fake, sympathetic pout. "You'll be at table 14 instead of the main table. It just makes more sense." I blinked. "Table 14? You mean the one in the back, by the bathrooms?" She let out a little laugh. "Oh, don't make it sound so bad. It's still a great seat." "Melissa," I said, setting my drink down, "I organized this party. I paid for this party. And you're telling me I don't get to sit at the table with my own wife?" Her friend steadily. She tilted her head, looking so pleased with herself. "Ryan, it's just, well, it's a family table." I let out a slow, humorous laugh. "I'm literally married to Jenna." "Exactly." She waved a hand in the air. "Here, of course." I stared at her. "Did Eleanor approve this?" That made her hesitate, just for a second. "Eleanor is too busy enjoying her night to worry about seating charts," she said smoothly. "So I took care of it. You understand?" Oh, I understood. I understood perfectly. Before I could say anything else, a waiter hesitated beside me. "Mr. King, just confirming the additional orders. Truffle risotto, caviar tasting, the vintage Dom Perignon. Mrs. Melissa said you approved them." I turned my head so slowly I swear I could hear my own neck crack. "I did what?" Melissa took a sip of her champagne, completely unbothered. "Oh, relax, Ryan, it's a party. You wouldn't want Eleanor to feel restricted, would you?" I stared at her. This wasn't about the food or the seating or even the party. This was about control, about reminding me that in her version of this family, I was just a guest. I took out my phone, scrolling through my banking app, and tapped the restaurant tab, leaving it completely open. No limits, no restrictions. "You're right," her smirk widened. "Finally, you're seeing reason," I smiled back. "Go crazy, Melissa," I said, patting her on the shoulder. "Really, order whatever you want." She narrowed her eyes. "What are you playing at?" I finished my drink and set the glass down with a quiet clink. "Nothing." And then I walked away. Melissa thought she had won. By the end of the night, she'd be the one paying for it. I walked away from Melissa, feeling her eyes burning into my back. I didn't have to turn around to know that she was fuming, probably already plotting whatever petty little move she thought would put me in my place. Let her. I headed straight for Jenna, who was laughing with Eleanor near the head table. The second Eleanor spotted me, her face lit up. "Ryan, darling, come here," she said, reaching for my hand and squeezing it warmly. "I was just telling Jenna how perfect everything is tonight. You really outdid yourself." I smiled, the tightness in my chest loosening just a bit. "Anything for you, Eleanor." Jenna turned toward me, her brows knitting together. "Hey, where have you been? You look—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Like he's been dealing with Melissa," Eleanor finished, rolling her eyes. Jenna groaned. "What did she do this time?" I forced a smile. "Nothing I can't handle," Eleanor sighed, rubbing her temples. "I swear that girl thrives on making everyone miserable. You know, she actually tried to tell me I should sit at the second table because, and I quote, the young generation should take the spotlight." Jenna's jaw dropped. "She what?" I let out a low chuckle. "Yeah, well, apparently I'm sitting at table 14 near the bathrooms." Jenna's expression darkened. "Oh, no." "Don't worry about it," I said. "Melissa thinks she's running the show. Let's see how she handles it when the curtain falls." And right on cue, Melissa's voice rang out over the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please?" I turned to see her standing near the stage, one hand wrapped around a champagne flute, the other gesturing grandly. The woman had an uncanny ability to command a room, but tonight, she was about to choke on her own spotlight. I just want to take a moment to say how grateful we are for our wonderful mother, Eleanor, she continued, smiling like she hadn't just spent the last hour treating me like garbage. She's the heart and soul of this family, and we are so blessed to celebrate her tonight. Polite applause followed. I clapped along, watching her like a predator watches its prey. Melissa turned slightly, her smirk widening. And of course, none of this would have been possible without my dear sister Jenna. She motioned toward my wife, completely skipping over me. Jenna worked so hard to make sure this night was perfect. A murmur rippled through the crowd. A few people glanced in my direction. Eleanor sat up straighter. Melissa, her said, her tone sharp, Ryan planned and paid for this event. Melissa let out a soft laugh, pretending not to hear. And of course, we all chipped in a little here and there to make this magical. I smiled to myself. Oh, this was going to be fun. The waiter from earlier stepped onto the stage, carrying a sleek black folder. He tapped Melissa on the shoulder, leaning in to whisper something. She frowned. What? The waiter gestured toward me. The bill, ma'am. Mr. King instructed us to bring it directly to the person who placed the additional orders. Melissa's smile twitched. Excuse me? The waiter politely held out the folder. The total, including the truffle risotto, caviar, and vintage champagne, comes to $22,489. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Someone dropped a fork. Melissa's face went pale. That's impossible. The waiter remained expressionless. Would you like to put it all on one card or split the payment? I crossed my arms, tilting my head. Yeah, Melissa, how would you like to pay? Her head snapped toward me, her nostrils flaring. You're unbelievable. I cut in, raising a finger. Language. Family event, remember? Eleanor's eyes darted between us. Ryan, what's going on? I gave her an easy smile. Melissa decided to treat herself tonight. Ordered all the most expensive dishes and drinks without asking me. I turned back to my sister-in-law, my voice smooth as silk. And since she wanted to act like she's in charge, I figured she'd also want to handle the bill. Melissa's hands were shaking. I'm not paying that. This is your event. I shrugged. Well, you did tell me to relax and let the family enjoy themselves, so I did. The waiter cleared his throat. Ma'am, if you can't pay, we'll have to involve management, and if the bill remains unpaid, we'll need to— Before he could finish, a deep voice interrupted. What is going on here? Everyone turned. Standing near the entrance, looking furious, was Melissa's ex-husband, David. Melissa's entire body went rigid. What are you doing here? David strode toward the stage, his eyes locking onto her like a sniper. My friend owns this venue. He called me when a certain someone started running up a massive tab with no visible way to pay. The room fell into a stunned silence. Melissa's hands curled into fists. I don't have time for this, David. He let out a sharp laugh. No, you never had time for anything but yourself. He turned to Eleanor. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think everyone here deserves to know exactly what kind of person Melissa is. Melissa's jaw clenched. Don't you dare! David ignored her. Melissa has spent years living off other people's money. Mine, our parents, anyone who'd let her. She doesn't contribute, she takes. And the second someone stops letting her leech off them, she turns nasty. A guest started murmuring. A few exchanged awkward glances. Melissa's voice wavered. David, stop. He didn't. She spent our entire marriage acting like she was above me, above everyone, and now she's sitting here trying to humiliate Ryan while making him pay for everything. He scoffed. Sounds about right. Melissa looked murderous. You don't know what you're talking about. David smirked. Don't I? And then security walked in. Excuse me, ma'am, one of the guards said. We've been informed there's an issue with the bill. Melissa let out a strangled noise. This is a mistake. The guards didn't care. Would you like to handle this discreetly or should we call the authorities? Silence. Cold, perfect, humiliating silence. Melissa looked around, desperate for someone to step in, but no one did. Not Eleanor, not Jenna, and especially not me. I just stood there, watching as the self-proclaimed queen of the family finally fell from her throne. Melissa was cornered. The security guards stood firm, their expressions neutral but unwavering. The waiter still held the bill, $22,489, staring her dead in the face. The entire room was silent, the weight of the moment pressing down like a crushing wave. For the first time in her miserable, self-absorbed life, Melissa had no way to talk her way out of it. Her fingers trembled around the stem of her champagne flute. This is a mistake. The lead guard, a no-nonsense-looking guy with arms like tree trunks, raised an eyebrow. Are you saying you didn't place these orders, ma'am? Melissa's eyes darted around, searching desperately for backup. Her gaze landed on Jenna, then Eleanor, then her ex-husband, David. But no one moved. Well, The guard pressed. Melissa let out a forced laugh, too high-pitched, too faint. Of course I ordered them. It was a celebration. I just assumed Ryan, being the host, would... I cut her off. Would what? Pay for your entitled behavior while you pretended I didn't exist? A ripple of whispers swept through the crowd. Melissa's face twisted in rage. Don't act like a victim, Ryan. Oh, I'm not, I said, leaning in slightly, my voice dropping just for her. But you are, and it's about to get a whole lot worse. That's when the front doors of the banquet hall burst open. 2 uniformed police officers walked in, scanning the room. The murmur of voices grew louder. Guests shifted uncomfortably, some already pulling out their phones. This wasn't just some family squabble anymore. This was about to go viral. Who's in charge here? One of the officers asked. The manager of the venue, a sharply dressed woman with a clipboard, stepped forward. It'd be Mr. Keene. She gestured toward me. The officer nodded and turned to me. Sir, we received a report about an unpaid balance. Normally, we wouldn't step in so quickly, but given the amount, he gave Melissa a long, assessing look. And the nature of the situation, the establishment requested immediate action. Melissa's breath hitched. You called the police? I shrugged. I didn't. But apparently when someone racks up a bill this high and refuses to pay, the venue has policies. David crossed his arms, smirking. Wow, Melissa, you really outdid yourself this time. She spun toward him, eyes blazing. Enough, David. You have no right to be here. He laughed, shaking his head. Oh, I have every right to be here. I've waited years to see you finally get what you deserve. Ma'am, the officer interrupted, either you settle this bill now, or we'll have to bring you in for fraud. The room collectively gasped. Melissa staggered back a step. Fraud. It's a dinner bill, not a crime. The officer pulled out his notepad. Ordering high-end items under someone else's name without their consent? That's called defrauding an establishment. Melissa turned to Eleanor, panic creeping into her voice. Mom, you're really going to let them do this to me? Eleanor exhaled slowly, adjusting the bracelet on her wrist. Melissa, you did this to yourself. The words hit like a slap. Melissa's entire body tensed. I am your daughter. Eleanor's expression didn't change. And Ryan is my son-in-law. Yet you treated him like a servant while draining his money. She shook her head. I've spent too many years excusing your behavior, Melissa, but this... She gestured around the room. This is the last straw. Melissa's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Then, the worst thing possible happened to her. Jenna, her own sister, spoke next. I think you should go, Melissa. Melissa let out a choked laugh. Are you serious? You're siding with him over me? Jenna's jaw tightened. He's my husband. And more importantly, he's a better person than you've ever been. And just like that, Melissa's entire world crashed. I could see it in her eyes, the realization that she had pushed too far, that she had finally burned the one bridge she thought would always be there. She turned back to me, her voice barely a whisper. You set me up? I smiled. No, Melissa, you did. The officer took a step closer. Ma'am, final chance. Are you paying this bill or are we escorting you out? Melissa's lip trembled. For the first time, she had no clever response, no smug comeback, just raw, humiliated silence. And then she did the only thing left to do. She turned and ran. Her heels clicked against the marble floors as she bolted toward the exit, shoving past stunned guests. A few people actually laughed. Someone took a picture. David just shook his head. The officers exchanged looks. Do we chase her? The manager sighed. No need. We have all her information on file. I let out a slow breath, finally allowing myself to relax. The storm had passed, Melissa was gone, and for the first time in years, I finally felt like I belonged. Melissa was gone, but the wreckage she left behind was still settling. The guests were still murmuring, the tension in the air thick like smoke after an explosion. A few people had their phones out, whispering, no doubt already texting about what had just happened. The once elegant banquet hall, the perfect celebration I had planned, was now tainted with scandal, and honestly, I didn't feel bad. Jenna stepped up beside me, rubbing her temples. Well, that was a disaster. Eleanor let out a tired sigh. No, darling, that was long overdue. I turned to my mother-in-law, my chest still tight with everything that had happened. Eleanor, She held up a hand. Don't you dare apologize. I blinked. I did nothing wrong, she said firmly, her voice carrying across the stunned crowd. Melissa did this to herself, and quite frankly, I'm tired of cleaning up her mess. I glanced at Jenna, expecting her to look upset or conflicted, but instead she just looked relieved. She grabbed my hand, squeezing it. Ryan, I'm so sorry. I frowned. For what? She exhaled. For not standing up to her sooner. For letting her get away with treating you like garbage for years. I should have done something a long time ago. I shook my head. Jenna, it's not on you. Melissa's a grown woman. And Eleanor crossed her arms, nodding in agreement. She needed this wake-up call. She let out a short laugh. And honestly, I doubt she'll actually wake up. She'll just find someone else to blame. David scoffed. You can bet on that. I turned to him, still processing the fact that he had shown up out of nowhere to expose Melissa in front of everyone. Why did you come anyway? David shrugged. Like I said, my buddy owns this place. When he told me some woman was racking up a massive bill under someone else's name, I knew it had to be her. Jenna rubbed her face. Jesus. It's like she's allergic to taking responsibility. She always has been, Eleanor said flatly. And for the first time, I saw something I'd never seen before. Real exhaustion in Eleanor's eyes. Not the kind that comes from a long night, but the kind that builds up over years, decades. Melissa had drained her too. She just never wanted to admit it. The next morning, the fallout officially began. It started with the phone calls. First, Melissa tried calling Eleanor 7 times. Then she tried Jenna. Then she even tried me. No one answered. Then came the texts. From Melissa, "You've ruined my life." From Melissa again, "You think you're so smart, you just turned the whole family against me." I hope you're happy. I was. But it got worse. By noon, social media was already eating her alive. Someone had recorded the entire scene at the banquet, the moment the police showed up, the bill being presented, the way Melissa turned tail and ran like a guilty criminal. By the afternoon, it was everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok. Rich lady tries to dine and dash at her own mother's birthday party. Woman humiliated after getting caught in $22,000. You think you're the main character, but karma has other plans. It was brutal, and I loved it. By the time dinner rolled around, the final nail in Melissa's coffin dropped. David texted Jenna. She got fired. I actually laughed out loud. Wait, what? Jenna stared at her phone in shock. David says someone at her company saw the video. They called her in this morning and basically told her she was a PR nightmare. Eleanor just sipped her tea. Good. And that's when I realized Melissa was done, not just embarrassed, not just humiliated. Her whole life was unraveling. No job, no support, and for the first time, no family left to bail her out. And she had no one to blame but herself. Melissa had always believed she was untouchable, that no matter how badly she behaved, someone, her in-laws, her colleagues, her mother, would always be there to pick up the pieces. But now, she was completely alone. No job, no husband, no support, and most importantly, no control. And that's when she did the one thing I actually expected. She showed up at my house. The doorbell rang at exactly 7:42 p.m. I already knew it was her before I even checked the camera feed. Jenna stood beside me, arms crossed. Are we seriously doing this? I smirked. Might as well. Let's see how desperate she really is. I opened the door and there she was, Melissa, looking nothing like her usual polished, perfectly put-together self. Her hair was unbrushed, her makeup smudged, and her eyes were red, like she'd been crying for hours. She didn't wait for an invitation. She shoved past me, storming into the living room like she still owned every room she walked into. What did you do to me? She spat, her voice shaking. I shut the door slowly, leaning against it. I don't know, Melissa. What did you do to yourself? She whirled around, eyes blazing. You humiliated me. You set me up like some criminal. Jenna let out a cold laugh. Melissa, you scammed a restaurant out of $22,000 and you thought that would just go away. Melissa turned to her sister, looking betrayed. Oh, don't act like you're innocent in this. You turned on me too. Jenna's expression hardened. No, I just finally saw you for who you really are. Melissa scoffed, but there was a tremble in her hands. You think this is funny, don't you? Watching me lose everything? I tilted my head. You mean the job you got by pretending to be someone you're not? The respect you never actually earned? The family you treated like servants? She swallowed hard, looking away. I made a mistake, okay? You don't have to keep rubbing it in. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Melissa, you spent years making me feel like I wasn't part of this family. You humiliated me every chance you got, and now that you're the one being humiliated, you want mercy? Her lip trembled. I need time to fix this. Jenna spoke first. Fix what, Melissa? Your reputation, your job? Or the fact that no one trusts you anymore? Melissa flinched. For the first time ever, she had no comeback, no snide remark, no clever insult. And then, finally, the truth slipped out. I don't know who I am without this family. Jenna exhaled sharply, shaking her head. Melissa, that's the problem. You spent your whole life treating people like chess pieces instead of actual family. Melissa clenched her jaw. So that's it. I make one mistake and you just throw me away? I gave her a look. This wasn't one mistake. This was years of you treating everyone like garbage. She let out a choked breath. I just thought, no matter what happened, I'd still have my family. Jenna's voice was soft but firm. You did. And you lost us." Melissa's shoulders sank. For the first time, she looked small, like she finally understood she had pushed too far. She took a shaky breath, looking at Jenna. "What do I do now?" Jenna's face was unreadable. Then she glanced at me. "That's not our problem anymore." Melissa's breath hitched. She stared at her sister, at me, then, without another word, she turned and walked out the door. And just like that, Melissa was gone. 1 year later, a lot had changed. After that night, Jenna and I grew closer. Without Melissa constantly stirring the pot, it felt like we could breathe again. Eleanor stopped making excuses for her daughter. She still loved Melissa, of course she did, but she no longer bent over backwards to fix her messes. As for Melissa, she tried to rebuild. She got a new job, but it wasn't glamorous. No power, no control, just work. She never reached out, not to me, not to Jenna, not even to Eleanor, and honestly, that was fine. Because if there's one thing I learned through all of this, family isn't about blood. It's about who actually respects you. And Melissa? She was never my family. She just thought she was the main character in a story that didn't belong to her.